to make this video? No. Why the fuck would I do that? He sees the same shit I see.
Because Israel hasn't wiped all Palestinians off the face of the earth, then they have yet to commit a genocide. That's what's being expressed here, right? If you read the UN's definition of genocide, any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group as such. Killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. There's no requirement or stipulation for total annihilation. If that were the case, a lot of genocides, most genocides would not meet the definition, a notable one being the Holocaust. Yeah. The logic in this tweet implies that because some Jews survived the Holocaust, the Nazis must not have wanted it that bad, because if they had, they would have succeeded. Anybody else sense that? There's Hitler particles emanating?
An even better argument, in my opinion, is the Armenian genocide, because famously, the Armenian population transfer and subsequent genocide that happened was not conducted in the same severity in other areas that weren't in the eastern part of Turkey at the time. So, because like the counter to this is always going to be, hey, dumb fuck. Like, well, we stopped them. We stopped the Nazis from doing a genocide. That's fucking bullshit. Like, blah, 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 blah. Right? But with the Armenian genocide, there was no such interference, I would say. And yet there was still, that is a documented genocide that was a documented genocide that did not impact in the same degree or the same severity the Armenian population in Istanbul, as far as I understand, is still a documented genocide, or the indigenous populations in the United States of America. There are still Native Americans, right? It's just that, like, like the superior might of one military over the other does not factor into whether something is considered a genocide or not. You know? It's ridiculous. That has nothing to do with the Genocide Convention.
From this tweet, journalist Mehdi Hasan responded to that last tweet from Destiny, writing, per this argument, China isn't guilty of genocide in Xinjiang because the Uyghurs still exist. Same with Russia in Ukraine. And Destiny quote tweeted this, writing, China is guilty of genocide because they are intentionally trying to eliminate a group of people, and it shows. There is no evidence of Israel doing this to Palestinians today. No evidence. Just, there's nothing. It's like, oh, shoot, okay. It feels weird. Everyone's like really up in arms about what's going on. Are they just making it up? Oh, hold on, hold the fort. I just found something on my computer. It's an 84-page document submitted to the International Court of Justice that outlines in detail with citations the plethora of evidence of Israel's genocidal actions and intent. Chat, is this real? Is this a thing? Just to preface, this document and application is pretty unprecedented. The ICJ... This
is also silly, as the ISIS crimes against the Yazidis killed 5,000, but was still considered a likely genocide due to the intent and the actions by ISIS. Yes, every other form of genocide that has happened throughout history would be not considered genocide by the standards that Destiny presented, which are not real standards at all, and currently being deliberated by professionals in a court, the International Court of Justice, as a matter of fact. But regardless of what the International Court of Justice decision is, you can see with your own two fucking eyes by looking at the actual makings of a genocide and comparing it to Israel's actions, which is, you know, what the International Court of Justice is doing currently. But
J is the UN's...
the Rohingya genocide, the Bosnian genocide, these are all genocides that would not be considered genocide by the standard that he is trying to apply here.
Highest court. It's the world court, basically. And after hearing South Africa's case against Israel, they ended up ruling that Israel is plausibly committing genocide. They fell short of calling for a ceasefire, but they did order, with near unanimous approval, that Israel must halt any actions in Gaza that could constitute genocide, which, according to the ICJ, they are currently plausibly undertaking. There is no evidence that Israel has changed anything about their rhetoric or military strategy in the months since this ruling. So, by the court's logic, the final verdict should be obvious, but unfortunately, we likely won't see that conclusion for at least another few years, because we live in hell. Okay, enough yapping. We're starting on page 30, section C. Genocidal acts committed against the Palestinian people. This section provides an overview of the acts in which Israel is engaged that are genocidal in character, having regard to their nature, scope, and context. These acts are ongoing in a conflict context, where Israel is deliberately imposing telecommunications blackouts on Gaza, restricting access by fact-finding bodies and international media. Section 1 outlines the actions defined as killing Palestinians in Gaza. It goes over the death toll, which is actually out of date. Currently, it's sitting at 28,000, not 21,000. The percentage of women and children killed, which is 70. The 15,000 people that are reported missing, probably dead under the rubble. Palestinians have been killed in their homes, in shelters, in hospitals, in schools, churches, mosques, literally just trying to find food and water for their families. Killed while evacuating, killed in the zones by which they're supposed to be evacuated to. And by evacuate, that means displaced. It means kicked out, homes destroyed, can't come back. Multiple instances of Israeli soldiers performing summary execution. One account was of at least 11 members of the Anan family and their relatives, boys and men, said to have been separated out by Israeli shoulders and shot in front of their family before the women and children were then attacked. Unarmed people, including Israeli hostages, being shot dead on sight despite posing no threat, even while waving white flags.
Would you say that Denier is actively trying to smuggle far-right ideas into a supposedly left-leaning liberal ideology? Yeah, but also, I see him as a mercenary. Like, I think he just is the type of person who wants the aesthetics of winning a debate over anything else. That's it. It's just blood sport. He does that, but that's not his like overarching ideological intent. I think it's simply just he wants to argue positions. It doesn't really matter. He likes the clout, and yeah, he does it specifically so that he does it. When he assumes a position, he just like goes balls to the wall on said position as aggressively as he can. And in this circumstance, he has taken on a position that is objectively at odds with what the truth is that many people can see. Loner box and his orbiters are the exact same. I don't know. Everything that I've seen from Loner box, especially as it pertains to Israel Palestine, has been like not bad. So I can't speak on that. No, he's not a phalangist. I don't think. You guys are crazy. But yeah, he is an orbiter for sure. But regardless, on the issue of Israel Palestine, it always like I'm always going to be charitable to people who I think are at least doing a relatively decent job of portraying the factually accurate information from the ground. I might have disagreements with people like that, but I've even shown charitability to Vosh as well on his issues on. Regardless of the litany of issues that he has, Vosh consistently defended Palestinian people. This is something that I voluntarily brought up. This is something that I voluntarily brought up when people were shitting on him early on before the Tacoma wept horse porn goblin things, the goblin folder and the lolly. I think his response was, yeah, I've hosted his PCRF fundraiser stream before. I think his response to me saying he's always been consistent on Palestine was that he just yelled at me or something. I don't know why. It was weird, but it's fine.
News at 10 first broadcast pictures of a Palestinian man in a group carrying a white flag in Gaza who was shot dead. The Israeli military told us it was not aware of the incident. It then said we had edited the pictures.
They knocked down the front wall and entered the house. We were sitting down having lunch at the time. Then my brother Mohammed was shot. He was at the front. waving a white flag.
For Palestinian children in particular, death is everywhere and nowhere is safe. A total of over 7,729 Palestinian children have been killed in Gaza to date. The scale of Palestinian child killings in Gaza is such that United Nations chiefs have described it as a graveyard for children. Indeed, the unprecedented rate of Palestinian child casualties has prompted UNICEF's spokesperson to call Israel's attacks on Gaza a war on children. Doctors, journalists, teachers, academics, and other professionals are also being killed at wholly unprecedented rates. To date, Israel has killed over 311 doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers, including doctors and ambulance drivers killed on duty, 103 journalists, which is now closer to 120, amounting to over...
Yeah, it is pretty wild that, like, Israel is so horny to kill Palestinians that they sometimes kill the Israeli hostages that they think might be secretly Palestinian that are also waving white flags. So, make with that information what you will.
One per day, and over 73% of the total number of journalists and media workers killed globally in 2023. 40 civil defense workers responsible for helping to dig victims out of the rubble killed while on duty, and over 209 teachers and educational staff. 144 United Nations employees have also been killed, the highest number of aid workers killed in UN history in such a short time. In addition to being killed by Israeli weaponry, Palestinians in Gaza are also at immediate risk of death by starvation, dehydration, and disease as a result of the ongoing siege by Israel, the insufficient aid being allowed through to the Palestinian population, and the extreme difficulties in distributing such limited aid that is permitted to enter the territory due to the decimation of Gaza's infrastructure in Israel's military attacks. Israelis sitting in front of the aid trucks to block them from entering Gaza is also not helping. Surprise, surprise. Celebrating too. Laughing what happens. Absolutely fucking depraved.
Dozens of protesters have demonstrated outside a major Israeli seaport opposing the delivery of humanitarian aid.
Hey, we're going to take a break from this very upsetting material real quick to talk about today's quite relevant sponsor, Ground News. Seeing what's happening in Gaza play out on the news and on our social media feeds can be confusing. It's hard to know what information to trust when it's being thrown at us so often, usually without enough context. So I can't think of a more perfect sponsor for today's video than Ground News. Ground News app and website gathers related news articles on any topic from around the world in one place and shows me the source's political leaning, reliability, and ownership, so I can assess how different news outlets are framing this conflict. For example, when Israel airstruck Rafah, the supposed refugee camp in the south of Gaza, killing at least 67 Palestinians, I used Ground News to see how that story was covered. 472 news outlets reported on this, with a fairly equal amount of coverage coming from the left, center, and right-leaning sources, according to bias ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations. And since there are so many misleading narratives out there, I filtered the articles by highest factuality, so I only see news from the most reliable outlets. Articles on the left seem to focus on how this attack is affecting Palestinian civilians.
Sometimes it's on accident, but you know what I mean?
The ones being displaced into the only supposed place of refuge, only to be, bombed, airstruck. Center-rated sources gave the more detached details of just how these bombs were dropped on the refugee camp, and articles on the right tended to lead with this conflict's effect on Israelis and the Israeli hostages. Most people never read beyond article headlines, so the ability to compare the framing from hundreds of news outlets all at once with tools that help me surface the best information is a game changer. So go to ground.news/Noah to try Ground News for yourself. Plans start at $1 per month, but you can get 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan by using my link. Ground News is supported by their subscribers and doing important work that no other news outlets are doing. So I encourage you to check them out. All right, now let's get back to the video. Section number 2, which is about bodily and mental harm to Palestinians in Gaza. Mind you, this is 2 of 8. And yeah, we're going to go through them all because I feel like I haven't seen that done in any major Western media outlets or content. I'm sure it has been, but just in case, if you haven't seen it, we're doing it. 55,000 Palestinians have been wounded in Israel's military attacks since October 7th. The majority of them women and children. Burns and amputations are typical injuries. There's an estimated 1,000 children that have lost one or both legs. Reports of Israeli forces using white phosphorus in densely populated areas. Even small amounts of white phosphorus can cause deep and severe burns, penetrating through the bone and capable of reigniting after initial treatment. There are no functioning hospitals in the north of Gaza, soon to be none in the south as well. Of the 12 that existed, only 7 are operational, such that injured persons persons are reduced to waiting to die, unable to seek surgery or medical treatment beyond first aid, dying slow, agonizing deaths from their injuries or from resultant infections. The extreme levels of bombardment and lack of any safe areas are also causing severe mental trauma in the Palestinian population in Gaza. Even before the latest onslaught, Palestinians in Gaza suffered severe trauma from prior attacks. 80% of Palestinian children experienced higher levels of emotional distress, demonstrating bedwetting and reactive mutism, and engaging in self-harm and suicidal thoughts. 11 weeks of relentless bombardment, displacement, and loss will necessarily have led to a further increase in those figures, particularly for the estimated tens of thousands of Palestinian children who have lost at least one parent and those who are the sole surviving members of their families.
On the second floor, there's a 5-year-old boy who was hit by a grenade. A fragment passed through his eye and lodged in his brain. But that's just part of Mumin's story. His brother and sister watched it all.
It was lunchtime. We were sitting down.
11-year-old Ahmed Hattab was in the kitchen when Israeli soldiers broke into the family home.
I love that Noah is using this as a jump off point to talk about the real fucking issues. Like, normally, the way that like debate purgatory and drama baiting drama baiters operate is like they don't care about the issues at all, and they will simply farm for the sake of farming because there's no like other underlying ideological position. A lot of these people that will be like, Hasan doesn't know what he's talking about, he's like fucking making shit up, they only care about making money in terms of ad revenue, right? That's their goal. Noah, on the other hand, seemingly is doing the exact opposite. He's utilizing the obvious reaction that this will garner from the likes of Destiny and others, right? Because he's bringing this controversial figure to the center of this conversation while simply using him as a jump-off point to talk about the actual issues on the ground. I really like what he did here. If you notice, it's very rarely about Destiny's idiotic fucking takes about how there is no genocide happening or how there is no ethnic cleansing happening in Gaza. Because he cares. He cares about the actual issue.
They raided our house and they shot our mum and dad. Then they started shooting at us.
His sister, Buthena, is 9.
We went to another room, hiding from the soldiers. They started banging on the door, and then they blew it up.
Point 53 gives examples of actions taken to intentionally cause psychological distress, specifically with regards to education and how the system is being completely disrupted by the bombing. It's even worse in reality than it looks. It's the amount of suffering is just something incomparable. It's really unbearable. I'm speechless when I try and think of the future of these children. It's generations of children who will be handicapped, who will be traumatized. The very children in our mental health programs are telling us that they would rather die than continue living in Gaza now. Large numbers of Palestinian civilians, including children, have reportedly been arrested, blindfolded, forced to undress and remain outside in the cold weather before being forced onto trucks and taken to unknown locations. Medics and first responders in particular have been repeatedly detained by Israeli forces, with many being detained incommunicado at unknown locations. Videos published by Israeli media on Christmas Day appear to show hundreds of Palestinians rounded up inside Al Yarmouk football stadium in Gaza City, including children, older people, and persons with disabilities being forced to strip to their underwear in degrading conditions. Many Palestinian detainees who have been released report having been subjected to torture and ill treatment, including the deprivation of food, water, shelter, and access to toilets. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports video footage showing bruises and burns on the bodies of detainees. Images of mutilated and burned corpses alongside videos of armed attacks by Israeli soldiers filed as exclusive content from the Gaza Strip are reportedly circulated in Israel via a social media Telegram channel called 72 Versions Uncensored.
This is a picture of Palestinians
praying
for those who have been killed by Israel. In the accompanying post, the dead are compared to, quote, a large shipment of fresh-baked goods straight from the shawarma. A comment reads, quote, I asked for a medium rare, make a new one. And then there's this, a dead body is being pulled by a vehicle across the...
This, by the way, was actually posted by an Israeli journalist who was embedded with the IDF at the time. Just if I remember correctly, this is literally not like a Israeli occupying force soldier like posting this. I'm pretty sure it was a journalist that was embedded with them that posted it.
The sand. Kudos to our warriors who, despite the war, keep the beaches clean from unnecessary trash.
It is estimated that over 1.9 million Palestinians out of Gaza's population of 2.3 million people, approximately 85% of the population, have been forced from their homes. There's nowhere safe for them to flee. Those who cannot leave or refuse to be displaced have been killed or at extreme risk of being killed in their homes. Israel is repeatedly issuing evacuation orders demanding that Palestinian civilians in certain areas of Gaza leave their homes for other areas. The first such order issued on the 13th of October in 2023.
Yeah, the 72 Virgins Telegram was run by the IDF, by the way, yes. It is a much smaller version of a much more popular Telegram channel that has like 250,000, I believe, active people in it that does way more gruesome propaganda. It's not even propaganda. I don't know how to describe it. It's just like you already have to have been such you have to have lapped up that propaganda already to look at that war porn and think that that is like, it's gore porn, it's snuff footage, and the IDF thought that this would be valuable for them to also engage in. It's incredibly racist.
Demanded that 1.1 million Palestinians living or otherwise present in the north of Gaza, including Gaza City, move to the south of Gaza within a 24-hour window. The International Committee of the Red Cross warned that the evacuation directive, impacting approximately 36% of Gaza's territory, combined with the complete siege of Gaza, was not compatible with international humanitarian law. The World Health Organization warned that it could be tantamount to a death sentence for hospital patients. The evacuation was, however, maintained and has been reissued on a number of occasions, including on the 28th of October 2023, ahead of the Israeli announcement of ground operations in northern Gaza, and again thereafter. Shelling and bombardment along the evacuation routes and at the destinations of the evacuation routes, leaving quote-unquote evacuation maps that have no designated areas to which they need to evacuate.
We identified 208 of these craters in satellite imagery and drone footage, indicating 2,000-pound bombs posed a pervasive threat to civilians seeking safety across South Gaza.
Not to mention near total internet blackouts at the time, preventing most Gazans to even see these maps. Point number 4 is deprivation of access to adequate food and water to Palestinians in Gaza. It is now literally impossible to effectively deliver this humanitarian aid. The late December UN Security Council measures were bogus. They were not going to work. They were never going to work. The watered-down resolution fails to properly address the 4 elements identified by the United Nations Secretary General as necessary following effective aid capable of assisting Palestinians in Gaza. Shelves are empty, wallets are empty, stomachs are empty. There's just one bakery operating in the whole of Gaza. You may or maybe probably not have seen that statistic that 90% of the world's populations in extreme hunger and famine are located in Gaza right now. People in northern Gaza are eating grass to survive. They are drinking polluted water. The lack of water is severely impacting lactating women in particular, who, even if undertaking only a moderate amount of exercise, require a supply of 7.5 liters of water a day for drinking, sanitation, and hygiene to keep themselves and their babies healthy. Young mothers are unable to breastfeed for lack of proper nutrition as arising from the food scarcity. They've been forced to use contaminated water to prepare formula where it is even available, risking disease in vulnerable babies. In parallel, the chronic unviability of formula is also risking the lives of newborn babies who are already reportedly dying from avoidable causes due to the absence of medical care, food, water, and adequate sanitation. The impacts of malnourishment on older children may also be particularly grave and long-lasting, preventing them from reaching their full potential in terms of physical growth, cognitive capacity, school performance, and productivity later in life. Experts are now predicting that more Palestinians in Gaza may die from starvation and disease than airstrikes, and yet Israel is intensifying its...
Just showing propaganda videos with no commentary? Propaganda videos in which direction, I think? This is just a truthful assessment of what is fucking going on. I don't know what other additional commentary that I can add to this. What would you like me to say? That he's lying? Because he's not. Do you have an issue with any of the things that were mentioned here? Please. I would love for you to explained to 24,000 people in the chat what you take issue with so far. Sometimes I add additional commentary, but in this circumstance, it is not deemed fit because I think Noah is doing a phenomenal job. I'm okay with both sides beside what Israel is doing right now. Wait, what? All right, man. I don't even know how to. Half the time, it's just like, whenever people come in here and like, I assume that they're gonna have like some mind melting take. Oftentimes, they're just too fucking stupid to like actually bring forward a coherent opinion. He's saying he's okay with both sides except like what Israel's doing right now. I don't know what that even fucking means. Like he's not even taking like a decent, taking like a tangible position on it. Israel is wrong, sure. Palestinians are wrong, but you're watching legit Western propaganda. Palestinians are wrong? Yeah, brother. The only wrong thing Palestinians are doing is that they're just existing on and were existing on land that Israel wants for itself in its apartheid state. That's the problem here. Perhaps you can understand it a little bit better if you reframe your fuck exactly though, and they're fighting for it. I don't get it. This guy's just like, yeah, dude. Israel's doing an ethnic cleansing on Gazans, okay? And Palestinians are defending themselves in certain circumstances from said ethnic cleansing campaign, and they're both right. That's sick.
Its bombing campaign,
Okay.
precluding the effective delivery of humanitarian assistance to Palestinians. It is clear that Israel is, through its actions and policies in Gaza, deliberately inflicting on Palestinians conditions of life calculated to bring about their destruction. Point 5 concerns the deprivation of access to adequate shelter, clothes, hygiene, and sanitation to Palestinians in Gaza. More descriptions and examples here of just a lack of basic necessities. Clothes, bedding, blankets, critical non-food items. Point 6 is the deprivation of adequate medical assistance to Palestinians in Gaza. Almost above all else, Israel's military assault on Gaza has been an attack on Gaza's medical healthcare system, indispensable to the life and survival of the Palestinians in Gaza. Israel has...
Oh man, Al-Ahli was such a long time ago, right? Israel would never attack a hospital. How dare you say that, Hasan? Did any of those drama baiters actually issue retractions? Did they? Did they ever care about that at all? It seemed like they didn't care about that at all, because if they did genuinely care about that, they probably would issue retractions on those videos, but what's the bro tip this week? My dick in your dad's ass. That's the bro tip. Chatter. I'm fucking your dad now. Not just your mom. Your dad's getting fucked too.
Has declared an unrelenting war on the health system in Gaza, as observed by the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the right of everyone to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. In a statement issued on the 7th of December in 2023, the United Nations expert noted that the healthcare infrastructure in the Gaza Strip has been completely obliterated, and that we bear witness to a shameful war on healthcare workers. She warned that we are in the darkest time for right to health in our lifetimes, and that we have descended into depths from which we must quickly emerge. Since early December 2023, Israeli attacks on Palestinian hospitals have only increased. The Israeli army has continued to attack and besiege hospitals and healthcare centers to deprive them of electricity and fuel, crucial to maintain effective functioning and equipment, to obstruct them from receiving medical supplies, food and water, to force their evacuations and closures, enclosure and effectively to destroy them. The north of Gaza, without any functioning hospital for a week, has only 4 severely challenged, partially functioning hospitals available now. There have now been more than 238 attacks on healthcare in Gaza, in which over 61 hospitals and other healthcare facilities have been damaged or destroyed. Do you remember when everyone was arguing about who launched the rocket that killed 300 people at Al Ali Hospital? So much time and media coverage dedicated to something that is literally 1/50th of the damage and destruction wrought by Israel against Gaza's healthcare system. It was all a distraction meant to get the conversation shifted over from literally everything is being destroyed and everyone is being killed to we need the New York Times to develop a 3D diagram and diagnose exactly what happened here and argue about this for 3.
By the way, we still literally don't know what actually happened. A new forensic architecture detailed investigation showed that another fundamental fucking argument that Israel and the New York Times and everyone else fucking went with was also destroyed as well. Wonderful though, because all the while I kept repeating over and over again, even if this was personally unspent fuel exploding from a Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket, right? The argument in and of itself, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, it's just like, it's only bad when Palestinian Islamic Jihad is blowing up their own people. Is that what the argument is? Like, I felt like I was losing my fucking mind. I kept saying that over and over again. I wonder if that was featured in my in all the videos from my haters talking about how bad I am and how misinformed I am. Surely they've made plenty of other videos on all the hospitals that Israel has very clearly, very openly destroyed, right? Surely.
3 weeks, while every single day a hospital is being destroyed, bombed or attacked or starved of resources. At least 570 Palestinians have been killed at hospitals and healthcare centers in Gaza, and further 746 have been injured. This includes patients and internally displaced Palestinians who vainly sought sanctuary on or near hospital grounds, killed by Israeli strikes or snipers. Palestinian mothers have been killed in maternity hospitals and Palestinian children in children's hospitals. Even those tending to and accounting the dead, like Saeed al-Shorbaji, director of Nasser's hospital mortuary, have themselves been killed. Some have even been victims of Israeli attacks multiple times over, like 12-year-old Dina Abu Massan, interviewed by UNICEF after losing her parents, 2 siblings, and her leg in an Israeli strike on her home. She was then killed herself when the Israeli army shelled the hospital where she was being treated. That shit, man. That shit. It is literally impossible to keep up and cover adequately the amount of destruction and murder that Israel is doing. It's impossible. And I don't know, man. I just don't know. Fucking Jesus Christ. Those wounded by Israel in Gaza are being deprived of life-saving medical care. Gaza's healthcare system, already crippled by years of blockade and prior attacks by Israel, is unable to cope with the sheer scale of the injuries, now at 55,243 injured, including at least 8,663 children. There are reports of severely injured patients walking for miles trying to find help. UNICEF highlighted the case of a boy from the north whose leg had been blown off in the violence, who had spent 3 or 4 days trying to reach the south, delayed by checkpoints. The smell of decomposition was clear, and that boy had shrapnel all over. Potentially he was blind and had burns to 50% of his body. I was forced to do dressing changes on massive wounds, excruciatingly painful wounds. There was a girl with just her whole body covered in shrapnel. She was 9. I ended up having to change and clean these wounds with no anesthetic and no analgesic. I managed to find some intravenous paracetamol to give her. Her dad was crying, I was crying, and the poor child was screaming. Similarly to famine, the possibility of disease killing more Palestinians than the bombardments is approaching. The final point in this section of the document concerns the destruction of Palestinian life in Gaza. In November, 21 members of United Nations working groups warning of a genocide in the making in Gaza observed that the level of destruction that had been by then taken place of housing units as well as hospitals, schools, mosques, bakeries, water pipes, sewage, and electricity networks threatens to make the continuation of Palestinian life in Gaza impossible. As they note, Israel has in its bombing campaign against Gaza used powerful weaponry with inherently indiscriminate impacts, resulting in a colossal death toll and the destruction of life-sustaining infrastructure. Israel has destroyed not only individual homes, houses, and whole apartment blocks, it has destroyed entire streets and entire neighborhoods. Shujaiya, a suburb of Gaza City, once home to approximately 110,000 Palestinians.
Yes, Genocide Denial Streamers is the name of the video, and it is by Noah Samsen. I thought we pinned it. It is pinned.
appears to be now a vast wasteland, entirely flattened as far as the eye can see. Its shops, schools, vibrant marketplace, family homes, doctor clinics, historic streets, and in Uthman Mosque, and everything that once sustained Palestinian life there has been damaged or destroyed, along with so many of its people. Other areas in Gaza appear to have experienced a similar level of destruction, including Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia, Gaza Old City, Al Ramal, and Nusayrat refugee camp in the south. Israel's targeted the Palace of Justice, the main Palestinian court building in Gaza, housing the Palestinian Supreme Court, as well as an archive of court records and other historical files. Israel has also significantly damaged the Palestinian Legislative Council complex. It has targeted Gaza City's Central Archive building, containing thousands of historical documents and national records dating back over 100 years, and forming an essential archive of Palestinian history, as well as more modern records of Gaza City's urban development. Israel
How
has
should
left
we
Gaza.
make the average American arrive at the right perspective on this? I don't necessarily know how we could get the average American to get to the right perspective on this. And even if they do, does that necessarily matter? Because the government is oftentimes very publicly, fundamentally at odds with democracy or what the democratic wants are. At this point, regardless of, I'm not a naysayer, I'm not a doom and gloom guy here, although it does sound like I am being one right now. My opinion on the matter is that no matter what happens, you mustn't stop trying to inform people on what is going on. That's it. Do not stop.
Gaza City's main public library in ruins. It has also damaged or destroyed countless bookshops, publishing houses, libraries, and hundreds of educational facilities. Israel has targeted every one of Gaza's 4 universities, including the Islamic...
The reality is, due to the consistent... Philly D uploaded the vid you think he was going to make, and it's already got 99K views. I know, we watched it already as soon as it came out.
University of Gaza, the oldest higher education institution in the territory, which has trained generations of doctors, engineers, amongst others, destroying campuses for the education of future generations of Palestinians in Gaza. Alongside many others, Israel has killed leading Palestinian academics, including Professor Soufiane Taye, the president of the Islamic University, an award-winning physicist and UNESCO chair of astronomy, astrophysics, and space sciences in Palestine, who died alongside his family in an airstrike. Dr. Ahmed Hamdi Abu Absa, dean of the software engineering department in the University of Palestine, reportedly shot dead by Israeli soldiers as he walked away, having been released from 3 days of enforced disappearance. Professor Mohammed Aid Shabir, professor of immunology and virology and former president of the Islamic University of Gaza. The airstrike on his home killed him, his wife, their daughter-in-law, and their eldest son. Those who survived the bombing and tried to walk to Al-Shifa Hospital nearby were shot dead by Israeli forces besieging the hospital. Professor Rifat Al-Arir, poet and professor of comparative literature and creative writing at the Islamic University of Gaza, Professor Al-Arir was a co-founder of We Are Not Numbers, a Palestinian youth project seeking to tell the stories behind otherwise impersonal accounts of Palestinians and Palestinian deaths in the news.
For more than 16 years, Al-Arir worked as a professor of English literature at the Islamic University of Gaza, where he taught Shakespeare and other subjects. Rafat Al-Arir was a father of 6 and a mentor to many young Palestinian writers and journalists. He authored dozens of stories and poems about life under Israeli occupation in Gaza.
Israel has damaged and destroyed numerous...
Listen, if you think this is hopeless, all I will say is that 10 years ago, this kind of death and destruction was still regularly occurring, not to the same severity. And yet there was no such sea of support for Palestinians. The only reason that I guess, do not feel as hopeless as it pertains to the conditions that Palestinians are subjected to is because, like, I've been covering this for my entire professional career. Okay. And back then it was a non-starter for everyone. They didn't even think about it. Like this wasn't even a thing that people discussed or talked about or cared about at all. Many more people have come to terms with the reality. There are obviously going to be a lot of naysayers and people who are loud and vocal in their opposition to what is directly happening in front of their eyes, like the genocide denial streamer that Noah is talking about. But their vocal opposition is ultimately the exact same vocal opposition that has always existed with no counter in the past. There is so much more. There's so much more awareness. Like it's just anyone who is an activist for this issue will tell you that.
Centers of Palestinian Learning and Culture, including the Al-Zafar Damari Mosque and Center for Manuscripts and Ancient Documents, the Orthodox Cultural Center, the Al-Qarara Cultural Museum, the Gaza Center for Culture and Arts, the Arab Social Cultural Center, the Hakawi Society for Culture and Arts, and the Rafah Museum, Gaza's newly opened museum of Palestinian heritage, housing hundreds of cultural and archaeological artifacts. Israel's attacks have destroyed Gaza's ancient history. 8 sites have been damaged or destroyed, including the ancient port of Gaza, known as Anthedon Harbor or Al-Balakia, the archaeological site of a 2,000-year-old Roman cemetery listed on both the Islamic Heritage List and tentative UNESCO World Heritage List. Israel has also destroyed Gaza City's old city, including its 146-year-old historic houses, mosques, churches, markets, and schools. It has also destroyed more recent history of more hopeful times, including the Rashad al-Shawa Cultural Center, site of the history.
Chatter, I covered Aaron Bushnell's legacy extensively and his actions extensively earlier today.
Historic meeting between
Video will
United
be up
States
soon.
President Bill Clinton and Palestinian President Yasser Arafat 25 years ago, and an important cultural hub for Palestinians in Gaza with its theater, library, and event space. And Israel is destroying Gaza's future academic and cultural potential. Alongside the 352 Palestinian schools, it has damaged or destroyed the 4,037 students and 209 teachers and educational staff it has killed, alongside the other 7,259 students and 619 teachers it has injured. Israel has damaged or destroyed an estimated 318 Muslim and Christian religious sites, demolishing the places where Palestinians have worshipped for generations. These include the Great Omari Mosque, originally a 5th century Byzantine church, an iconic landmark of Gaza's history, architecture, and cultural heritage, and a place of worship by Christians and Muslims for over 1,000 years. Israeli shelling has also damaged the Church of St. Porphyrius, founded in 425 AD and believed to be the 3rd oldest church in the world, alongside 2 other churches that have sustained direct Israeli fire. Gaza's Christians themselves have been targeted and killed by Israel in the very church compound where they sought shelter. Many of these war crimes are being filmed by Israeli occupation forces and posted.
What are you saying? What is this? Yeah, let's see how the vocal opposition decreases the dollar amount made from the government farming murder from bomb-ridden rubble and sands and amputated children. I don't know what's happening here. Are you talking to this person? I'm confused. I'm just obsessed. Stop pulling me up. Virtual meal is Palestinian.
On social media for entertainment content.
This is a how-to video on how to blow up a mosque in Gaza. Format is internet fluent. The content is very real. Filmed, edited, and posted on Instagram by an Israeli soldier. It's one of dozens reviewed by CNN.
Friend of the show, Ugopnik, had a great video on this topic specifically. You should go watch that. Israel has killed and is killing Palestinian storytellers and poets, Palestinian farmers and fishermen, alongside Gaza's local legends. Pastry chef Masoud Muhammad al-Qahtadi, killed in an Israeli airstrike on his house on the 3rd of November 2023, whose shop's motto, "Let the poor eat," and reputation for giving away the popular Palestinian treat kanafa to indigent customers, earned him the nickname Father of the Poor. 84-year-old Elham Farah, from one of Palestine's oldest Christian families, a reputed accorditionist and music teacher known as Mother Orange to generations of Palestinian music students for her shock of red hair, shot dead by an Israeli sniper outside the Holy Family Church in Gaza City when she returned home for warm clothes and was left to bleed to death. And Al-Shaima Saidam, the student with the highest final high school exam grades in the whole of Palestine, killed with multiple members of her family in a strike on al-Nusayrat refugee camp, just as Israel is destroying the official memory and records of Palestinians.
I mean, this is one of the objectively most well-documented instances of ethnic cleansing. I don't know how anyone with a semblance of humanity can look to everything that is going on and say, nah, it's valid. Nah, they deserve it. Nah. It blows my mind. I genuinely don't understand it.
In Gaza through its destruction of Gaza's archives and landmarks. It is obliterating Palestinian personal lives and private memories, histories, and futures through bombing and bulldozing graveyards, destroying family records and photographs, wiping out entire multi-generational families, and killing, maiming, and traumatizing a generation of children. As a Palestinian man in a video by UNRWA succinctly sums up, these are all our memories, our entire lives. Now it's all gone. Everything has turned to ashes. The Israeli army erecting the Israeli flag over the wreckage of devastated Palestinian homes, towns, and cities, including in Gaza City's Palestine Square itself, and spurred on by calls from within the Israeli government and without to flatten Gaza and re-establish Israeli settlements on the rubble of Palestinian homes, is destroying the very fabric and basis of Palestinian life in Gaza. Israel is thereby deliberately inflicting on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life calculated to bring about its destruction. Yeah, I don't have much else to add to that. The final point, point 8, is imposing measures intended.
I wonder how many actual Hamas or any kind of Palestinian militants. I wonder if any Israel routinely has showed video footage of them blowing up hospitals, blowing up schools, blowing up mosques, celebrating that, right? The one type of footage that I've never fucking seen is Israeli soldiers on the ground actually shooting at someone who's shooting back at them and successfully killing them. In the past so many months now, I don't know how many fucking months it's been, and I've never seen a single fucking combat footage from the Israeli side that is a successful mission. It's kind of wild because I've seen a lot of Palestinian combatants defending Gaza and blowing up fucking tanks. I've only seen Israelis on the ground, if they're ever on the ground, the IDF. I've only ever fucking seen them stealing women's underwear, stealing women's heels, breaking and entering, opening up people's safes, stealing the money from those safes, blowing up schools, blowing up mosques. The only thing that comes near, the only thing that comes close to any sort of real footage, any kind of real footage I've seen of combat is often just the Israeli occupying force body camera footage of them entering an open entering an open a completely empty school and shooting at hallways. It's just always fucking, it's always just that. The one time I saw a video was of a dog inside of one of the Hamas tunnels, if you recall, and that was actually not even a fucking Hamas combatant that the dog with a body camera strapped to it was actually attacking. That was a training video that they posted. It's because of polarization. You follow pro-Palestine accounts. Is there footage in Rafah where the hostage got released? There was a video released before the two hostages got released. Because I just mentioned to you what I see from pro-Israeli accounts. You say that I'm only seeing anti-Israel accounts, which is, I do definitely see a lot more anti-Israel accounts on my For You page than I see pro-Israel accounts, but I still see a shit ton of pro-Israel accounts. And honestly, I have not seen a single fucking piece of body camera footage of them like directly going into combat. Like I've only seen them shoot at people who are not shooting back, people who are I've only seen like the Israeli occupying force body camera footage of them like clearing empty rooms. There could be the assassination at the hospital, but like again, that's not the Israeli occupying force like actually killing people who are fighting back at all. It's just mostly killing people who are out of combat. Perhaps it's difficult to do, of course, for Israel, considering that like their greatest enemy is not Hamas at all, but simply a Palestinian baby sleeping in a crib, or a Palestinian preemie baby, like a premature child that is in an incubator, rotting, left to rot. So, of course, for that reason, because I've seen a lot of that, so I suspect it's quite difficult for them to cook up any kind of footage whatsoever.
To prevent Palestinian births. As set out above, Israel's actions are impacting Palestinian women and children in Gaza especially severely, with 70% of those killed estimated to be women and children. 2 mothers are estimated to be killed every hour in Gaza. Over 7,729 children were estimated to have been killed by December 11th alone, and at least 4,700 other women and children are reported missing, believed to be buried under the rubble. There are multiple eyewitness accounts of pregnant women being killed by
the footage the chat is talking about them shooting an empty house. The IDF Commando Brigade is fighting in Han Yunis. It seems like someone's shooting at them, I think. Wait, this also still looks like... Oh no, there's someone fighting back there. Okay, fair. We've seen one. Respect to the chatter who said there is one singular. There is definitely one singular video. Thank you for showing this to me. Maybe there's 2. Who knows?
Israeli soldiers, including while trying to access healthcare. Pregnant women and children, including newborn babies, are also particularly impacted by displacement, lack of access to
I love exceptions that prove the rule. Yeah, pretty much.
Food and water, shelter, clothes, hygiene and sanitation, and lack of access to health services. These effects are severe and significant. An estimated 5,500 of approximately 52,000 pregnant Palestinian women in Gaza giving birth each month are doing so in unsafe conditions, often with no clean water, much less medical assistance, in shelters, in their homes, in the streets, amid rubble, or in overwhelmed healthcare facilities, where sanitation is worsening and the risk of infection and medical complications is on the rise. Where they are able to get a functioning hospital, pregnant women are having to undergo cesarean sections without anesthetic. Given the lack of access to critical medical supplies, including blood, doctors are being compelled to perform ordinarily unnecessary hysterectomies on young women in an attempt to save their lives, leaving them unable to have more children. The Minister of Health for the State of Palestine, Dr. May Al-Kaila, confirms that the only option facing Palestinian women in Gaza who bleed out after giving birth is to undergo a hysterectomy in order for their lives to be saved. Premature births have reportedly increased between 25 and 30% as stressed and traumatized pregnant women face a myriad of challenges, including being compelled to walk long distances in search of safety, attempting to escape from bombs, and being crowded into shelters and often squalid conditions. Particularly in northern Gaza, cases of placenta abruption, a serious condition that occurs to pregnant women during childbirth, which is potentially life-threatening to both mother and baby, have more than doubled. An ever-increasing number of Palestinian babies in Gaza are reportedly dying from entirely preventable causes brought about by Israel's actions. Newborns up to 3 months old are dying of diarrhea, hypothermia, and other preventable diseases without essential equipment and medical support. Premature and underweight babies have little to no chance of survival. Palestinian newborn babies have died due to the lack of fuel to supply hospital generators. Others have been found decomposing in their hospital cots, medical staff taking care of them having been forced by Israel to evacuate. On November 3rd, the World Health Organization warned that maternal deaths are expected to increase given the lack of access to adequate care, with deadly consequences consequences on reproductive health, including a rise in stress-induced miscarriages, stillbirths, and premature births. The reproductive violence inflicted by Israel on Palestinian women, newborn babies, infants, and children could be qualified as acts of genocide under Article 2 of the Convention of Prevention of Genocide, including imposing measures intended to prevent births within a group. She stressed that states must prevent and punish such acts in accordance with their responsibilities under the Genocide Convention. So if after hearing all of that, you still don't think there's any evidence of Israel conducting a genocide, I just want to ask how? How and why? I mean, his tweet did say intentional, Maybe all this stuff was on accident. Wait a minute, hold on, there's another section here. Expressions of genocidal intent against the Palestinian people by Israeli state officials and others. Evidence of Israeli state officials' specific intent to commit and persist in committing genocidal acts or to fail to prevent them has been significant and overt since October 2023. Those statements of intent, when combined with the level of killing, maiming, displacement, and destruction on the ground, together with the siege, evidence an unfolding and continuing genocide. This part of the document contains statements from basically every single person that works for the Israeli government that are genocidal in nature, if not overtly genocidal. Yep. Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, notoriously described their military campaign as a struggle between the children of light and the children of darkness, between humanity and...
Which is something you say when you're the good guy. For sure.
The law of the jungle. Later on, in a letter to Israeli soldiers that was also posted on Twitter, Netanyahu said that this is the war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness. We will not let up on our mission until the light overcomes the darkness. The good will defeat the extreme evil that threatens us and the entire world. Later, we're facing monsters who murdered children in front of their parents. This is a battle not only of Israel against these barbarians, it's a battle of civilization against barbarism. In late October, Israeli forces were preparing their land invasion of Gaza, and the Prime Minister invoked the biblical story of the total destruction of Amalek by the Israelites, stating, "You must remember what Amalek has done to you, says our Holy Bible," and we do remember. The Prime Minister referred again to Amalek in the letter sent on the 3rd of November to Israeli soldiers and officers. The relevant biblical passage reads as follows: "Now go, attack Amalek, and prescribe all that belongs to him. Spare no one, but kill alike men and women, infants and sucklings, oxen and sheep, camels and asses." I wonder what that means. What could that mean? Israel's president, Isaac Herzog, it's an entire nation out there that is responsible. It's not true, this rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved. It's absolutely not true, and we will fight until we break their backbone. He's also one of the many Israelis to have handwritten messages on bombs to be dropped on Gaza. The Minister of Defense said that they were imposing a complete siege on Gaza. No electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are fighting human animals, and we are acting accordingly. He also informed troops on the border that he had released all the restraints, saying that Gaza won't return to what it was before. We will eliminate everything. If it doesn't take one day, it will take a week, it will take weeks or even months. We will reach all places. He further announced that Israel was...
Worked my 9 to 5 today. Glad... Wait, hold on. You don't have to clap that guy. He said, worked my 9 to 5 today. Glad you took the harder job so people like me can prosper. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome, brother. I am your enemy.
Moving to a full-scale response, and that he had removed every restriction on Israeli forces. When we say that Hamas should be destroyed, it also means those who celebrate, those who support, and those who hand out candy, they're all terrorists and they should also be destroyed. That was the Israeli Minister for National Security. All the civilian population in Gaza is ordered to leave immediately. We will win. They will not receive a drop of water or a single battery until they leave the world. No electrical switch will be turned on, no water hydrant will be opened, and no fuel truck will enter until the Israeli abductees are returned home. Humanitarianism for humanitarianism, and no one will preach us morality. This is the continued logic to justify war crimes, right? Taking civilian hostages is a war crime. Does that mean you can do war crimes to undo that? No. That's literally that. No, you can't. And what's being described there is a war crime, and they're doing it. They're doing that, and it's a war crime. We need to deal a blow that hasn't been seen in 50 years and take down Gaza. That was the Israeli Minister of Finance. The north of the Gaza Strip, more beautiful than ever. Everything is blown up and flattened, simply a pleasure for the eyes. We must talk about the day after. In my mind, we will hand over lots to all those who fought for Gaza over the years and to those evicted from Gush Katif, which is a former Israeli settlement. He later argued against humanitarian aid. We wouldn't hand the Nazis humanitarian aid, and there is no such thing as uninvolved civilians in Gaza. He also posited a nuclear attack on the Gaza Strip. The Israeli Minister of Agriculture invoked the Nakba, said they were doing it again for Gaza. We all have one common goal: erasing the Gaza Strip from the face of the earth. That was the Deputy Speaker of the Knesset and member of the Foreign Affairs and Security Committee. It's not just politicians, though. Of course, it's also military officials. Hamas became ISIS, and the citizens of Gaza are celebrating instead of being horrified. Human animals are dealt with accordingly. Israel has imposed a total blockade on Gaza. No electricity, no water, just damage. You wanted hell, you will get hell. That was the Israeli Army Coordinator of Government Activities in the territories. We cut the supply of energy, water, and diesel to the Strip, but it's not enough. In order to make the siege effective, we have to prevent others from giving assistance to Gaza. The people should be told that they have two choices: to stay and to starve, or to leave. If Egypt and other countries prefer that these people will perish in Gaza, this is their choice. When you are at war with another country, you don't feed them, you don't provide them with electricity or gas or water or anything else. A country can be attacked in a much broader way to bring the country to the brink of dysfunction. This is the necessary outcome of events in Gaza. Israel has no interest in the Gaza Strip being rehabilitated, and this is an important point that needs to be made clear to the Americans. If we ever want to see the hostages alive, the only way is to create a severe humanitarian crisis in Gaza. He called for the destructions of water treatment plants. Much like President Herzog, this guy has repeatedly underscored that there should be no distinction between Hamas combatants and Palestinian civilians. Who are the poor women of Gaza? They are all the mothers, sisters, or wives of Hamas murderers. On the one hand, they are part of the infrastructure that supports the organization, and on the other hand, if they experience a humanitarian disaster, then it can be assumed that some of the Hamas fighters and the more junior commanders will begin to understand that the war is futile. These kind of statements are, not only evil and genocidal, but they're also just wrong. Hamas is not going to be eliminated. That's just not going to happen. That's not how this works. It's been 4 straight months of relentless bombardment in northern Gaza. Israel claimed that Hamas had been dismantled there and pulled troops, but they have continually resurfaced. The last thing I want to read here is a quote-unquote motivational speech that an Israeli army reservist made that's just, I don't know, it's just fucking sickening. Be triumphant and finish them off, and don't leave anyone behind. Erase the memory of them. Erase them, their families, mothers, and children. These animals can no longer live. Every Jew with a weapon.
This is, of course, a literal fucking terrorist, this person. Okay? Ezra Yachin is a straight-up rapist, terrorist, murderer. 95 fucking years old. Worked and did the Deir Yassin massacre in the Nakba, also known as the morale booster.
Should go out and kill them. If you have an Arab neighbor, don't wait. Go to his home and shoot him. We want to invade, not like before. We want to enter and destroy what's in front of us and destroy houses, then destroy the one after it. With all of our forces, complete destruction, enter and destroy. As you can see, we will witness things we've never dreamed of. Let them drop bombs on them and erase them.
Thank you, 34MKD50 for the 50 the subs. I'm going to run the 3-minute ad break now as well.
This guy was called up by the army to give motivational speeches. This was broadcast on social media. It's just incomprehensible that it's just that mask off, It actually really isn't, though, when you understand how Israeli soldiers and settlers talk about Palestinians and the sorts of evils they've afflicted upon them in the past and will continue to do so in the future.
זה היה משהו זוועתי, וזה אסור לספר, אני לא אדבר על זה, כי זה יכול להיות סקנדל שלם בעניין הזה. 3-4 חודשים הראשונים הייתי רוצח.
מה זה אומר?
אני לא לקחתי שבויים. בזמן קרב, אם מישהו ירים ידיים, משהו כזה. לא לקחתי שבויים. אם היה עומדת כיתה של זה עם ידיים למעלה, אז באותו יום הייתי רואה אותי, הייתי קוצר את כולם, עד כדי.
This is one of the wildest parts about it, because like those who perpetrated these ethnic cleansing campaigns in 1948 are still very much alive and super open to admitting it. And that's why it's like extra crazy that there is even any debate on the Nakba at all. Like, the people who did it will say they did it. it's wild that it took like the fucking new historians to even get to that perspective that it was a planned and calculated attack of ethnic displacement.
כמה אתה חושב אנשים הרגת ככה?
לא ספרתי. אני לא יכול לדעת בחיי. היה לי מקלע עם 250 כדורים. תראה, יריתי, נלחמתי כולם. אני לא יכול לספור.
This list goes on and on and on, and I hope by now at least some of you are able to look at this and say, you know, maybe there's some evidence in there. I don't know what better evidence you can have of genocidal intent than looking into the camera and saying, I want to do a genocide. We want to do a genocide. We want to kill everybody. We want to do it right now as soon as we can. And then immediately taking actions over and over and over again that are meant to achieve that goal. How much fucking clearer does it get, man? We're going to return now to a few more of Destiny's tweets because, you know, that's the point of this video, to look at an influencer's tweets and call him dumb, not use drama farming as a Trojan horse to read the ICJ application that lays out a pretty compelling case that Israel is committing genocide. That's not the point of this video. We're here to farm. Omar Badar is another person who responded to that initial tweet from Destiny. He wrote, your obsession with litigating the applicability of the word genocide here without adequate legal background is getting in the way of a bigger point. Genocide or not, there is no dispute that Israel is committing horrific war crimes in its deliberate war on Palestinian civilians. Destiny responded, writing, I mean, it's possible that the IDF is, but the other side is committing a fuck ton of war crimes for sure. It's possible? It's possible? Aside from the fucking CEO of the Israeli War Crimes Institute for Defending War Crimes College, Destiny is the only guy casting doubt on the...
He's such a gross little worm, dude. Like, and his fucking audience is so stupid for like eating that shit up and being like, no, he's not worming around on this take. Like, he actually is just being open-minded. Like, you don't understand. He's so intellectually honest, dude. But what do you expect from a bunch of dumb motherfuckers who literally say he does research streams because he read fucking Wikipedia pages after making his decision months prior without any knowledge whatsoever that it's actually totally valid that Israel is doing genocide and they should do it? Oh, one day, I hope people will wake up.
Assertion that Israel is committing war crimes. They're on video. When it comes to Hamas's war crimes, it's for sure. He's very sure about that. When it comes to Israel's, maybe. I don't know. Who's to say? Who's to say? The other absurd part about this tweet is him saying that no one cares about holding Hamas responsible. My brother in Christ, what do you think Israel thinks it's doing? Literally, the only reason this genocide is still going on is because Israel is saying that they are, quote unquote, large quotes, holding Hamas responsible. Also, the United States, virtually every Western media apparatus. That's why every major interview has to start off with 12 minutes of the host telling the guests to condemn Hamas, condemn Hamas, condemn Hamas. Come on, do you condemn Hamas? Another person responded to that tweet writing, since when does death toll in an active war not count? Destiny replied saying, question mark, going to war is not genocide. People die in war, that doesn't make it genocide. Civilians die in war, that doesn't make it
Wait, what the fuck? So the Holocaust is not a genocide then? That happened in war. The Armenian genocide happened during war. Bro, I'm sorry. This is mind-bogglingly fucking dumb. I don't even see this shit because I blocked them like so long ago. That's actually crazy. How the fuck do people look at this and go, wow, this is like brilliant? I feel the exact same way that I did about Ben Shapiro dick riders as I do about him. It blows my fucking mind. It's just pure air, dude. I legitimately don't understand how anyone could look to this and be like, no, this is actually a pretty valid take. I feel like Destiny didn't realize how outlandish his take in October because he knows fuck all and knows he's in too far to swallow his pride and admit he's fucking stupid. I mean, at least, yeah, I mean, Ben Shapiro fucking sucks ass. He's a horrible monster. But at least he, like, tries to find convincing talking points. Like, Ben Shapiro is an ultra-Zionist for a very long time, right? I don't think he, like, has he said this? Maybe he has. I mean, it's just as equally dumb when he says it too, but it just doesn't make any sense to just be like, oh, dude, going to war is not genocide, dude. The fuck?
Genocide. Even if you commit war crimes and target civilians, that's not genocide. So here he's just sort of milking the one thing he's been technically correct on, which is that death tolls alone are not the same thing as genocide. They're not, but also no qualified commentator in this discussion is saying that. I personally don't consider a random 700 follower Twitter user to be a qualified commentator, but that's just me personally, I guess. He likes to do this thing. He does a few other tweets. Somebody wrote, paraphrasing him, if you commit war crimes and target civilians, that's not genocide. He responded writing, how fucking stupid are people? Hey, come on, man. Relax. Jesus. Yes, why would you think you're making a point here? What do you even think genocide is? Just killing civilians? Once again, the original statement taken on its own as a tweet is technically incorrect. You know, war crimes and civilian targeting usually are a part of genocide. Actually using the term requires other factors. But also, he here took an incomplete version of this person's argument. A minute after that first tweet,
actually, that's called Mountain Bailey for all the fucking debate perverts in the chat who never understand logical fallacies that they talk about personally. He's doing a Mountain Bailey. Shocked to find out that a dude who makes a living debating is the most common, not Ben Shapiro. No, I'm not talking about that. Oh, damn, you intellectually dominated him with that call out. Now it is not a genocide by default. Yeah. Five, 9, 15. Overall. Okay.
tweet, they replied to their own tweet writing, there's actually a wealth of evidence that Israeli forces are committing genocide. All of it was used and quoted in the ICJ. The war crimes and civilian targeting in the original tweet are clearly referencing a specific application which does display genocide. He didn't respond to that original tweet, and you could see why, right? The tweet makes his big epic dunk a moot point. Here you might say, well, no, he maybe just didn't see that second tweet. And it's like, maybe, but also, you know, it was tweeted a minute after. And the first thing you see when you click on a tweet is replies from the original author. I think the more likely explanation is just that it's easier to pick incomplete criticism to dunk on. It's just you want to win. You win. You win that point. You win that point in response. Congratulations. But you won in the most annoying and inconsequential way possible. One wonders how someone like this ends up getting divorced very publicly and then making hours and hours of content talking.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, damn. Dude, you don't understand. He was fucking making phenomenal content, owning his ex-wife in the marketplace of ideas. Dude, I've never fucking seen such goddamn losers who are like, this is the coolest thing a man can do. This is literally the coolest thing a man can do. This is a beacon of intellectual honesty. I cannot. Oh, Jesus Christ, dude. owning my former wife in the marketplace of ideas. God damn. It's because they're even losers like this? Not necessarily, because like I think a lot of his fandom is most likely unfuckable. They more so, I suspect, live vicariously through him. But this is like this is a meme, right? Basically a fucking meme. It's just like I went through divorce court and I'm owning my ex-wife in the marketplace of ideas. Like, let me make a YouTube video about it is fucking nuts.
About his ex-wife. I mean, it's just, normal stuff, cool stuff. Another response to that first tweet was someone saying, if Nazi Germany wanted to genocide all the Jews, then they would only exist in the history books, Destiny circa 1943. And he's just quoting the logic back to, we did that earlier, How does Destiny respond to this? Well, he does it by doing a sneaky little switcheroo. The Jewish population still hasn't recovered from the Holocaust, a genocide lasting a few years that's some 80 years old. Israel has been continually genociding Palestinians for decades, and yet their population continues to grow every single day. The first tweet stipulated total annihilation, remember? That was the definition he used, but when someone responds doing the same thing, he does a switcheroo. He backpedals from a population that only exists in the history books to a population that has...
It is fucking wild that people think this is like really good argumentation. Motivated reasoning, I suspect, but... Yeah, for the record, this is yet another Mott and Bailey. For those of you who didn't understand earlier, Noah is directly explaining what it is without saying it. But if you're like an annoying debate pervert, that's what this is. Yeah, it's I don't know. Hold on, I gotta look at something. Let me see something. I never understood the actual analogy of the wall and building, just confused me. What do you mean? I don't watch any D-Man debates. Does he often rely on various logical fallacies to make his arguments? Every fucking top debater does this. It's actually a pretty valuable way to do it. The reason why logical fallacies in debate are called out in a professional structure is because of how convincing they are. You can browse through hours and hours of actual fucking journals, scholarly journals, but one anecdotal point of information will be infinitely more emotional. And if debates are won and lost in, especially on the internet, by like the way your position is received, then yes, you're always going to utilize logical fallacies. Every single debate pervert utilizes logical fallacies that they try to rationalize. It won't work in a debate club, but nobody cares about debate club. That shit's boring as fuck. That's it. That's the reason why there are supposedly rules around it in a more structured setting. Where do you think the idea that genocide has to be a complete annihilation comes from, though? I don't think anyone has ever said that it has to be a complete annihilation. Anyway, listen. If you were in a fucking debate club, it's fine, you know? I'm not going to yuck your yum. Except for Destiny, yes, he is saying that. It's mostly genocidal intent that matters. But I mean, I guess like the people that say it's not genocide until it's like full blown complete destruction of the entire population must be from genocide denials. Like, I wonder what the Nazis, well, I know what the Nazis said about the Warsaw Ghetto, right? They openly would do the exact same things that Israel is saying and doing about Gaza. Like, straight up, directly a one-to-one comparison. Israel's ultra-nationalist defenders of ethnic cleansing unironically and uncritically repeat the exact same propaganda that the Nazis did about the Warsaw Ghetto. Like, down to a fucking T. You understand? Just look at the shape of demographics in Palestine to refute this. I mean, there's that part about it, but I think that a lot of people don't understand that population increase in this circumstance is going to be, of course, it's going to happen because these people have nothing. When you have nothing, it's the same. It's the same situation that you see in places like African countries that are devoid of adequate infrastructure. Like, you see the exact inverse of this in developed nations as opposed to developing nations. Developed nations have a serious problem with population growth because people simply stop having children, whereas undeveloped parts of the world have a lot more children.
Is not recovered in growth. That's not what you said, bro.
Normal stuff, cool stuff.
In the future, when the dust settles about what's going on right now, what's happening to Palestinians, insofar as it needs to settle, I think anyone paying attention, there's no dust. I do wonder what guys like this will be up to, you know? Like his grandkid, Beyonce Jr., comes up to him at the cabin, sits up on his knee and says, "Hey, Pup, where were you during the Palestinian genocide?" And he'll be like, "Well, kiddo, I was in my gamer chair trying to convince everybody that it wasn't happening." And then Beyonce Jr. will say, "Why'd you do that? What the fuck, man?" And he'll say, "Because I didn't want to be wrong." So, also it helped me pull 20 million views a month, so there's that. He'll be fine, though, you know, big fan base, following the pathway of warmongering liberalism. Every lib journalist that foamed at the mouth to invade Iraq, they're like tenured professors, and they work at the Washington Post and write op-eds for that War Crime College Institute place we talked about earlier. No, I'm not coming on your stream. I don't want to get destroyed in the marketplace of ideas, but also that's probably a good thing. The last guy I debated live on stream ended up having animated child porn on his computer. I don't think anyone wants to be exposed for that, so lose the battle, win the war, so they say. Anyways, see you guys. Have a good one. Bye.
God damn. God damn, son. Okay, you didn't have to end it like that. Fuck. Hiya. Get out of there. What happened? What? Move. Why do you do this? Anyway, holy moly. Huh. That was a great fucking ending. Yeah. Come on, buddy. I know you perfectly detailed why my tweets were fucking complete dog shit and showed very clearly that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But what if I were to actually make you misspeak? And then my entire audience would celebrate that and clip it out of context and pump it all over the world. And then they would cyberstalk you into oblivion, which they're probably doing right now. Come on now. Hasan, you know he's about to make a video for this, right? Bro, it won't stop. This motherfucker's done so many videos on me. Who gives a shit? At a certain point, you gotta fucking retaliate a little bit. You know what I mean? Yeah. Destiny is too cowardly to watch this entire video that Noah made and refute each individual point step by step is all I will say. He's too afraid. It's true. He's too afraid. He's worried that his audience will see actually great talking points